Hey everyone, welcome back to Purposeful Armament, and today we have a video discussing how to find the perfect range. Now, all of this is information that I wish I would have known whenever I was going about trying to find a new range to shoot at. So I'm going to go over a bunch of different information, and while some of it might seem like it's very beginner oriented, there is a lot of valuable information in this video for people who are intermediate or even advanced shooters to level up their training. Hopefully everyone will be able to gain some sort of insight and level up their training and become better shooters all around. I also want to say that I'm not trying to shit on like bench rest shooting or indoor-outdoor bay shooting ranges, but they do have downsides. They also have a time and a place. So let's talk about what's going to be in this video. So first of all, I'm going to explain what an indoor or outdoor bay shooting range is and how it actually is beneficial to your training. I'm then going to talk about some of the major downsides of using these indoor-outdoor bay shooting ranges. I will then cover my criteria for a good shooting range. I'll go over things like range policies, capabilities, cost, distance, etc. Throughout the video, I will also be talking about the range that I go to because it is a great example of a lot of these points that I'm going to bring up. And finally, I will close out with some information for newer people or people who have never been to this style of range before on what to expect and how to kind of gray man in. I'll talk throughout this video about the range that I go to because I think it exemplifies a lot of the great qualities that I look for in a range. And finally, I will finish off with a bit of advice for new shooters or people who have never gone to this style of shooting range before. I'll give some expectations that you should have and how you should go about finding the range. So let's get into the content. So what are indoor-outdoor bay shooting ranges good at? Well, these types of ranges are actually really good at developing fundamentals. There's not a lot of extras that are happening around. You can very much focus on things like your trigger press, your grip, and even just generally aiming your gun. These ranges are also really good if you want to just quickly go in and shoot a box of ammo, or you want to go in and sight something in specifically. But after you build the fundamentals, these indoor-outdoor bay shooting ranges are really going to cause you to stagnate in your training. I have a whole video talking about how to avoid stagnation. I will put a card in one of the two corners, whichever one it is, if you guys want to check that video out. The vast majority, if not all, indoor-outdoor bay style shooting ranges are public and oftentimes don't allow you to practice very fundamental aspects of firearm ownership. Many of these ranges don't allow you to use a holster of any kind. They don't allow you to rapid fire. They don't allow you to do any sort of movement. They don't allow you to introduce any sort of stress to your shooting. And oftentimes they really don't have very far engagement distances. And these are absolutely essential skills to have if you want to be proficient with your firearm. And oftentimes something as simple as using a shot timer is frowned upon at these indoor-outdoor bay shooting ranges. And sometimes it's just not even possible to use because of the sheer amount of gunfire going on. Your timer can't get a good reading. So here's my criteria on what makes a shooting range good. And these are going to be in order of importance. Number one, probably the most important, is that the range allows you to use a holster, both inside and outside the waistband. This is probably the single most important aspect of a range that you should be searching for. Being able to train using a holster is what actually builds competency with your pistol. You have to know how to manipulate your firearm in a holster if you are planning on doing CCW or carrying for duty use or open carry, really anything with a pistol. You need to know how to defeat your garment, how to build that grip while it's coming out of the holster, how to maintain your grip through presentation, a plethora of different things. Now you can practice this with dry fire and that will get you most of the way there, but you really need to practice with live fire as well. And a lot of indoor and even outdoor bay shooting ranges don't allow this. I know typically it's because it's a public range, insurance situations, but these very much hinder your ability to practice proficiency with your pistol. Number two, the range should allow movement. Now, movement is probably the second most important aspect of shooting that you need to learn. Chances are, if you're ever in a gunfight, You're not going to be standing still in the middle of the open shooting at a stationary target. You need to learn how to move with your firearm. And this actually can be somewhat difficult. I have seen people who are very competent shooters, but as soon as they get out and start running around with their firearm, they become very lethargic and very awkward looking because they've never actually practiced how to safely and effectively move with a firearm, whether that's running or walking. Being able to safely and effectively move and also shoot at the same time is going to definitely build your confidence and your capabilities with you and your firearm. So as you're seeing with Panther Ridge, we are using holsters, we are walking up to the firing line, we are doing movement drills, we are running to and from cover, we are doing all sorts of different movement drills. And another huge upside to your range allowing movement is that you actually get to test how your kit is going to work. You get to test how your belt is going to perform while you're actually running. You get to work out any kinks with your chest rig or your plate carrier or your sling, whenever you're allowed to move. Number 3 is the ability to introduce stress. This is incredibly important as well. Now, that stress could be in the form of a shot timer. It could be in the form of some other physical stress, like running or doing push-ups or even force-on-force simunition. A timer will introduce stress by giving you a metric at which you're graded against, but also an audio cue to which you have to quickly react to. And the best way to get over and work through the stress is to introduce the stress in the first place and train your body to become kind of numb to it. And like I said, at a lot of ranges, even introducing a shot timer is frowned upon, much less running or doing any other sort of physical stressors. At Panther Ridge, we don't have that problem. We can use shot timers all we want. We can run however many meters we want. We can do however many push-ups or burpees we want. It's all fine. And there's even a place for simunition training. Number 4, the ability to rapid fire. Now, chances are if the range that you're looking at allows you to use a holster, movement, and introduce stress, you're going to be allowed to also rapid fire. But a lot of indoor and outdoor bay ranges don't allow you to do that. Now, being able to shoot your gun fast takes a lot of practice. Something that you can't work on whenever you have a 1 shot for every 2-second rule like a lot of indoor-outdoor ranges enforce. Having the ability to rapid fire is going to allow you to practice your recoil management, rough sight picture alignment, all sorts of different things, even something like a trigger press. Now, at these indoor ranges where you can't rapid fire, you can practice your grip by trying to get back on target as quickly as possible after you've shot a round, but it's nowhere close to the same thing as actually rapid firing. And oftentimes people who don't actually practice rapid fire are going to experience things like trigger freeze or inconsistencies in their trigger or their grip. They're going to be all over the place and be shooting wildly inaccurate because they've never actually been allowed to rapid fire and practice maintaining a solid grip and maintaining proper trigger presses. Number 5, the engagement distances at the range. Now, we're starting to get into things that are a little bit lower on the totem pole in terms of importance. But engagement distance is incredibly important. I mean, guns are distance tools. A lot of indoor ranges are going to have maybe a maximum of 50 yards. A lot of outdoor ranges are going to maybe have a maximum of 100 yards. But a lot of these more tactical training ranges have much greater distances. For instance, at Panther Ridge, we have a 600-yard range. And honestly, if you want to learn how to use your rifle effectively at distance, you have to actually shoot at distance. Now, there are things that you can do, like getting smaller targets and putting them closer so that you can sort of mimic the size of the target at a different distance. But when you're doing that, you really don't get the full effect of shooting longer ranges. You won't get to experience things like bullet travel time or wind and elevation holds or really anything like that. You also won't get the experience of trying to figure out what the wind is doing downrange, because sometimes, especially at very long ranges, the wind can be doing all sorts of different things at the different ranges. You won't get that if you're using a smaller target at 25 yards or a smaller target at 50 yards. if you're not shooting at longer distances, then you don't really know how your gun or yourself is going to be able to perform at those distances, no matter how you try and mimic it at 50 yards. Now, number 6. Again, we're getting pretty low in terms of priority, but number 6 is the ability to do specialty drills. Now, specialty drills I would consider to be things like vehicle operations, shoot houses, maybe even 180-degree ranges, things of that nature. And while it's not incredibly important for you to have these to be competent with your firearm, they are very nice. At Panther Ridge, we have a shoot house that we can use some munition in. We have the ability to do vehicle operations. It definitely helps because these are, in some ways, inducing more stress into your shooting and really testing your capabilities as a shooter. Now, number 7 is culture, policies, and team building abilities. The culture at these ranges is incredibly important. It can often be what makes or breaks a new person or someone who is even an intermediate to advanced shooter from joining into the more tactical training or purposeful training, whatever you want to call it, sort of world, sphere, if you will. Going to the range and training with other people is awesome. And your range should have the ability for you to meet new people who are like-minded and who want to train with you in a safe manner. Typically, these ranges that allow you to do a more tactical style of shooting have a much stronger 2A representation than what you're going to find at your local indoor or outdoor bay shooting range. And you want to make sure that the policies are pretty open as well. At Panther Ridge, the policies are great. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. It has great hours, all of those kind of things. Finally, number 8, our last important consideration for what makes a range good is distance. Now, not the distance of the actual range, but the distance from where you live to the range. I consider this to be the least important thing because if a range is 3 hours away, but that range is the only range that allows you to do any of the aforementioned 7 criteria, then I would say that that 3-hour trip is great for once a month. Now, I would say that goes to a certain point. Maybe you shouldn't be driving for like 10 hours or something crazy to get to one of these ranges, but still, just be a little bit lenient on the distance. For example, there is a range that is about 20 minutes from my house. It's an indoor shooting range, and the maximum distance is 50 yards. Wonderful. I choose instead to drive an hour out to Panther Ridge because Panther Ridge offers everything that I want from a shooting range. It offers that holster, movement, stress, vehicle operations, specialty drills, all sorts of different stuff, rapid fire, whereas the indoor range really doesn't. So I would rather drive that hour to a range that offers more than the 20 minutes to the range that offers less. Some cherries on top that a range could offer would be something like shoot house, medical or vehicle classes, have a low cost, access to things that aren't necessarily, necessary, but are just kind of nice amenities. How to find a range like this. Now, this gets to the hard part. This is honestly going to take some time. For me, it took forever to find the perfect range. I was searching for months and months before finding Panther Ridge, so I want to offer some tips so that hopefully you can sort of shorten that time frame. So first off, do a quick Google search of ranges near you. Make sure to go more than just the first page. Go to the second, third, fourth page. See things that are a little bit further away. A lot of times these ranges are not necessarily super close to you. Maybe they're not advertised as well. So you want to really scroll through Google, a few pages through Google at least, and see what is out there. Secondly, head to Facebook. Now, I personally hate Facebook, but a lot of ranges that offer these types of training opportunities will advertise on Facebook, or at the very least have Facebook pages. I have seen ranges that have great amenities, so to speak, that are only advertised on Facebook. And again, remember to scroll through some of the listings. Don't just look at the first handful of listings and then say, well, nothing by me. Make sure to really do some digging. Thirdly, you can look for training classes. Now, not just any training classes, but specifically sort of the tactical or practical pistol shooting, defensive pistol shooting, or rifle shooting, whatever they name the class. Make sure it's something along those lines. These classes will oftentimes tell you the range that they're going to be shooting at. And since it's a tactical or a practical or whatever the hell you want to call it type of class, that means that they at least are offering the ability for you to introduce movement or stress or use holsters. So that's a really good option as well. Look at those classes and see where they're taking place at. Then you can reach out to the range directly. Now, this is how I actually originally found Panther Ridge. I was looking at training classes, eventually found out that Panther Ridge was offering training classes. And then I also saw that they had open range time where you could be a member, pay a fee, and have access to the range whenever you wanted. So that does work. And finally, if you aren't able to find a range using any of these other means, go on and talk to people. Talk to people at the shooting ranges that you are going to. Talk to people who are in maybe the same sort of groups as you. Maybe you have friends who you know who are into guns. Maybe go to your local gun store and talk to them. Maybe talk to some old farmer to see if he'll let you shoot on his land. Break out of that introvert shell and go and actually kind of talk to people and see what they have to offer. I have found opportunities to go to people's land in the past and shoot on their land instead of actually having to go to a shooting range. So while that might not be the most long-term thing, it is a good interim solution until you find that perfect range. What to expect. This is going to be more for the people who have never gone to this kind of shooting range before, or who are brand new shooters, or who aren't really confident in their firearms abilities yet. Now, I have taken a lot of new people to Panther Ridge, and across the board, I will say people are most often extremely nervous when they get to Panther Ridge. Now, most of the time these people are nervous because, well, they've never shot a gun before, or they've never done this type of shooting before, or there's a lot of people who look intimidating, we'll say. The main thing to remember is the vast majority of people who are going to be at the shooting range are extremely nice people, and they are going to welcome you in and give you tips and tricks and help you out along the way. As long as you're being safe, there is oftentimes little judgment to brand new shooters. Just make sure that you are hyper aware of the firearms safety rules and you're being as safe as possible. And remember, also communicate with the people if you do have to share the range. See what they are doing. If you drive up, this is your first time out and there's a group of people who are downrange shooting, go up and talk to them, see what they're doing, see what distances they want to be at, see what their ideas are for the day. Sort of build around that. A lot of times a range like Panther Ridge is not going to have an RSO, so safety is paramount and very, very, very important. So make sure that if you are going to one of these ranges, whether or not you're a new gun owner or not, make sure that you have your firearm safety on lockdown because you are going to be responsible for safety. I would also recommend do not push yourself outside of your comfort zone. I have seen people who have gone to the range for the first time, or maybe they've been a few times, and they will see other people at the range doing something super high speed. Maybe they're bailing out of a vehicle, maybe they're doing all sorts of running, maybe they're doing some sort of crazy barricade drill, whatever it is. And that person who is new to shooting wants to try it, but they're not competent enough with a firearm yet. So don't push yourself outside of your comfort zone. Just sit back, work at your own pace, and eventually you'll get to the point you want to be at. Now, something else I've talked a lot about with Jeremiah is new people's impression of the range and himself. If you go to Panther Ridge's website, you will see a lot of military dudes, fully tatted with multi-cam gear on, running through shoot houses, and it is very cool, but a lot of people have said they were intimidated or they felt like they wouldn't fit in at the range because of the look that the range had. And I'm here to say that that couldn't be further from the truth. And honestly, if you go to a range and you feel as though you're not being accepted, or people are trying to gatekeep you because you're not ex-military or ex-police, then that's probably not really a range that you want to be involved in anyways. So don't be too intimidated by looks. Oftentimes people are just going to be super nice and glad that you're joining into the firearms community. So go ahead and leave a like if you enjoyed the video and you learned something. If you know someone who is new to this type of shooting, go ahead and send them this video to try and dispel some of their possible doubts. I will see you guys in the next video, and remember, stay armed.